How to buy a house in Fort Worth, Texas. That is what we're covering today. I spaced out there for a second, even though I have all these notes. How to buy a house in Fort Worth, Texas. That is what we're covering today. We're going to go from the very beginning of making sure that our finances are correct, showing you how to actually look for homes, especially here in Fort Worth. Find out what the mortgage payment is going to be. We're going to look at property taxes. We're going to look at insurances. We're going to look at everything that you're going to need to know in order to purchase a home in Fort Worth confidently. That's very important here. We need to have that comfort that, especially if we're moving in from another city, that we know what we're getting ourselves into. If you're coming in from another state, of course, same thing. You need to know what you are in for, because one of the things that we're going to be talking about is property taxes, and that's a very sore subject here in Texas because it's one of the highest property tax states in the country. So it's a big deal. All right, so with that being said, let's dive right on in. How to buy a house in Fort Worth, Texas, a step-by-step guide. Let's get into it right now. All right, so we have 12 steps to get into. We're going to go through the mindset, the financial assessment, how to get pre-qualified, finding that right real estate agent, how to actually do your home search the right way, especially here in Fort Worth, making an offer that stands out and actually has a chance of getting accepted. How about that? That would be that would be welcome, right? So how do we actually get this contract accepted? Then we're going to get into the where are we here? Then we're going to get into week one, making that offer, going into the inspections week, the approval week, conditions week, the move-in week, closing, and after closing. We're going to go into everything that you're going to need to know to buy a home in Fort Worth the right way. So let's dig in. Let's talk about mindset. This is super important. Can you see this okay? Let's see if I zoom in just a tad. Can you see this? All right, so let's talk about mindset. Now, this is not a hokey type of thing. This is not like, oh, think positive or do any of that. No. Let's just get practical with it. And the question that I ask our clients to ask themselves all of the time is, if it makes sense to buy, will I actually do it? I'll say it again. If it makes sense to buy, will I actually do it? This is assuming that the conditions are right. This is assuming that you found that house that you want, assuming that you are going to be able to make that mortgage payment, assuming that there's that motivation, it just makes financial sense. It makes real estate sense. After the research has been done, all signs are green. If that is the case, if it makes sense for me to buy, will I actually do it? If the answer is no, go ahead and hit that like button and get out of here. I'm kidding. Go ahead and just be honest with yourself. Again, this is designed to save you time, save you energy, save you stress, save you a ton of money as you're going through this home buying journey, because the last thing I want for you is all of this time, energy, resources spent into something that's not going to actually help you at the end of the day. And the reason that it wouldn't be a no-go for you is because, well, maybe it doesn't make sense for you to make that purchase right now because you know you're going to leave where you're presently living in 8 months, meaning you're going to relocate somewhere else. Like, if it makes sense to buy, will I actually do it? So this helps you save so much time, energy, and effort. So only you can answer that question. So that's why it's important that we start off with this one and having a realistic question. I'm sorry, being honest with ourselves so we can actually make wise decisions, especially in real estate, because that can get expensive very quickly. So now let's look at something else. Let's look at the financial assessment. When it comes to the financial assessment, here's what I look at with that. I look at three distinct things. I look at the closing cost, I look at the transaction cost, and I look at the moving cost. Now, what does this mean? That means from the closing cost perspective, ongoing cost perspective, when you become the owner of a home, you are paying the mortgage payment. That's something you probably already knew, but you're also paying repairs. You're also paying additional utilities. You're also paying for maintenance. There are going to be these ongoing costs of being a homeowner that are often overlooked. So it's not just the principal plus interest and property, the principal plus interest plus insurance and property taxes. It's not just the PITI. It's the utilities that you're paying, the additional utilities that you're paying, the repairs of the home that you're going to have to make, the maintenance of it. There's these ongoing costs that some of us are not prepared or actually don't want to do. So if you can stomach that ongoing cost, That's something that you can, that's something that can keep you moving forward. Now, transaction costs, let's look at that. What does that mean? Well, that means that for you to actually purchase a home, there is a transaction cost to do so, right? So some of us may have all the desire in the world, but maybe we're not able to come up with enough money for the down payment and also the closing costs, which are often overlooked. Be mindful of that. The transaction cost is going to mean that you're going to have cash enough to cover at least the down payment, whether it's 3% down for a conventional or up to, well, really you can put as much down as you want, or 3.5% minimum with an FHA loan. Like, do you have the money to do the down payment plus the additional closing costs that can be to 3 to 5%? This means title fees, covering the title expenses. This means covering the home insurance. This means covering property taxes, which is going to be what's called prepaids. There's certain things that you pay at closing that you're going to have to cover from the get-go. Moving costs. When it comes to moving costs, there's 3 costs that you need to be mindful of. 1, the cost to leave where you're presently living, the cost to transport all of your belongings, and the cost to move in. So when I say the cost to move in, there might be some repairs, there might be some updating that you want to do to the home before you actually move in. I'll give you an example. Some of our clients that lived in Addison, they just purchased in North Louisville. Sorry, I'm getting over something. So I might be pausing for a quick second. They moved up there north of Louisville. And they did some renovations on the home. Like, they got it way under market value. Like, the market value of that home was like $585 or so. They bought it for $500,000, so substantially less. So, but they were gonna do some updates. So they were gonna update they were gonna be painting. They're gonna be doing some updating to the floor. They're gonna be doing a bit of repairs to some of the rooms. So that has some real cost. Right, so not only did they do the transaction cost of the down payment plus closing cost, but there was that moving cost. So they needed to actually repair, do some things to the home before they even got there. So again, these are the financial. This is part of the financial assessment that I ask all of our clients to do because it's very important. All right, now when we're talking about buying a home in Fort Worth, for the most part, the first part, second, and third part are relatively similar to anywhere in the city, anywhere in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So we're going to keep it going. Getting pre-qualified. Getting pre-qualified with the lender is super important if you're going to buy a home here in Texas, if you're going to buy a home here in Fort Worth. And the reason that you want to get pre-qualified with a lender is because any offer that you intend to make moving forward, let's just say you found the home of your dreams that you want to move forward, well, in order for the seller to take you seriously, it's going to need to be accompanied with a pre-qualification letter where you're demonstrating to the seller that you have the means to close on the purchase of this property. So that offer is not just a hopeful wish. That offer comes with a bit of meat on the bone where there's some intentionality behind it. Another huge benefit of getting pre-qualified with the lender ahead of time is that it gives you a budget to work with. This way you understand how much of a loan you can actually take whenever you're looking for a property. So you may think that you might be qualified up to $300,000 until the moment that you do a pre-qualification and find that you're qualified up to $500,000. Well, that changes the picture completely for you. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to maximize the approval amount. It doesn't mean that you need to absolutely maximize to $500,000. It just shows you that you have the potential to do so. The goal here is not to spend every single penny that you are eligible for, but it does give you a good idea of that budget so you can buy the home that you actually want and not sacrifice as much, which we'll talk about the home search in Fort Worth here shortly. Now, one of the things that you're going to want to do is get multiple quotes from lenders. So you're not get multiple quotes from lenders. So you're so let me rephrase that. Get multiple quotes from lenders so you're getting the best deal. You're getting the best deal on closing costs. You're getting the best deal on all of that fun stuff. Now, here's the thing. Whenever you pull your credit, you are not whenever you pull your credit for the first time for a mortgage, there's a few weeks after that, about 30 days or so, that the credit isn't affected Again, meaning one of the biggest concerns that we as home buyers have is that whenever we get our credit pulled, that when that happens, we're going to get dinged all of this in our credit score, and our credit score is going to get reduced drastically. Well, that's not the case. Whenever you get your credit pulled for the first time for a mortgage, you have a kind of like a grace period after the fact to where you can get your credit pulled multiple times for different lenders, because it's understood that you're probably shopping the lenders in order to get the best rate, best deal out there. So you're not going to get dinged every single time that your credit card that your credit gets pulled. So just be mindful of that. Now let's talk about finding that right real estate agent, because that matters here in Texas. That really matters in Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, especially in Fort Worth, because there's some pockets out there that might not be the best fit for what you're looking for. So here's what we need to understand. There's two main components that you want to be mindful of when you're looking for a real estate agent to help you out in the purchase of a Fort Worth home. Well, number one is checking their experience in the market. Do they know Fort Worth? Do they know the area? Do they know what the northeast of the, Fort Worth itself is, what the real estate there is doing or not doing, what the southeast part of the Fort Worth area is doing or not doing, what restrictions there might be, what benefits there are to Fort Worth, what the real estate market is doing overall when it comes to Fort Worth. So you need somebody that is a local expert in that market. So real estate market expertise is a must. Another must is real estate expertise, period. So you need someone that has actually closed transactions before, that knows how to negotiate, that knows and has resources for you to leverage along with their network. So here you're not leaving it just to somebody that is doing real estate as a hobby, or at least you shouldn't. One of the big reasons is because you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for this purchase. You want someone that has been there before and done that. Now, here's a interesting stat for you. Last year, half of the real estate agents out there sold one or no homes in real estate. So I'll say that again because I said that a little bit weird. Half of the real estate licensed agents out there sold one or no homes last year. Half, right? So this lets you know that a lot of the folks that you know that are in real estate right now just aren't doing it as actively as you might think. So that is a big deal. Especially since you're spending thousands of dollars. Now, something else to be mindful of: there has been changes in the real estate market here in the last 2 years or so. There's been changes in how buyer agent commissions are handled. There's been changes in what agents altogether can and cannot do. There's just more. I like to say transparency, because that's the case. There's been more and more transparency, so it's actually a good thing for the industry. However, a lot of real estate agents just aren't even aware of what's going on with all of these changes, aren't aware what's going on with buyer agency, aren't aware with what's happening on with these real estate portals, on what they do or don't do with the listings that are published right now. So it's somebody does not have a good command of the real estate process in general. You might be in a bit of a rough patch when you're trying to close on a home. All right, so as you're coming in, a like is going to go a long way. That's going to really help out with the algorithm. All right, let's talk about home search strategy. When you're going out there and searching for a home, you're going to want to get two lists. One is going to be the must-have list. The other list is going to be a want list. So the must-have list, let's keep it short. You don't need to get 1,000 must-haves out there. That's something that is going to be not possible to obtain. So I suggest that at most you give yourself a maximum of 5 must-have items. So if you absolutely must have that pull, then let's just put that in stone. Now, if you must have a 2-story home, then let's just make that an absolute requirement. Give yourself some things that you're not going to have flexibility on, so you are not overwhelmed with all of the options. But don't give yourself so many different must-haves that you're going to restrict yourself altogether, like where you're going to absolutely just have 0 homes to choose from because none of them are going to fit everything that you want. And that's okay. So have your must list. but also take this opportunity to get a wants list. This wants list gives you an ability to do a bit of flexibility, give yourself a little bit of flexibility so you can actually find homes that you would like to have a open concept, you would like to have a certain flooring, you would like to have a certain whatever, but it may not be possible at the price point that you're in, and you're going to be okay with that. So give yourself a wants list. Now, whenever you get set up for safe searches, one of the things that you're going to want to do is be clear. Either you have your safe search through Zillow by yourself, or when you're working with the real estate agent, and if you don't have one, my contact information is down below, along with our team members is linked down below. When you're set up directly with the MLS, that's the best place that you can get your safe search from, because it's coming directly from people that are putting the inventory out there, which essentially is homeowners through real estate agents. When you go to places like Zillow, there's a lot of inventory out there that is actually already under contract, but it says that it's still for sale. So there's a lot of inaccuracies it's a third-party website that is pulling some information from the MLS, but not all of it, right? So when you say have your safe searches, the best place to have a safe search is going to be on the MLS. And if you want some help with getting access to the MLS here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex and the Fort Worth area specifically, please feel free to reach out. Now, one of the things that you're going to want to do whenever you're doing your home searches, you want to vet the listings out very well. Now, the reason you want to vet your listings out before you ever go and do any showings is because it's going to save you a lot of time. It's much easier to go through the descriptions, much easier to look at the images and find out that, hey, this actually doesn't have anything that we want, as opposed to scheduling, especially through a real estate agent, them taking the time to see if it's available, you taking the time to actually go and see the home, and by the time you look up, you've already lost an afternoon seeing a home that with an additional 2 minutes or 3 minutes of vetting, you would have found, hey, this is probably not within my must-have list, so I'm going to discard it. So doing a little bit of pre-vetting is going to help you out a ton. And of course, you're going to want to drive the neighborhood that you're thinking about buying, especially during commute times. Okay, so whenever you get off of work, drive to the area that you're wanting to live in. That's going to be a really good indicator of, is this a drive that I want to be doing? That's a really good pro tip. But let's talk about the homes. Let's talk about Fort Worth in general. Well, not in general, specifically. There's 4,300 properties for sale in Fort Worth right now, with the average price point of $433. Now, here in this Fort Worth search, you're going to see all of the type of real estate out there. So we're going to just focus on single family, and we're going to see the inventory that's available for sale right now. Now, as you can see, and you might have already imagined, that Fort Worth is the other half of the Metroplex, or at least when it comes to the name. So it's on the west side of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. It's in Tarrant County. It is one of the largest cities in the country, and certainly one of the largest cities in the state. So there's going to be a lot of homes to choose from. Now, you're going to see it kind of go around and absorb some of the cities throughout the area. So you're going to see White Settlement already within the Fort Worth, almost within Fort Worth city limits. You're going to see Benbrook, you're going to see Saginaw, you're going to see Hazlet. So there's a lot of pockets in here that are technically not Fort Worth, that they're other cities, but for the most part, a lot of folks consider them Fort Worth anyway. Now, what I like to do, just to give you an idea of the pockets of real estate that we're talking about, I like to show you what the price of real estate actually is in the area. So what we're going to do is we're going to put max $250,000 for a property in Fort Worth, which is going to give us an idea of where the inventory is. Now, one of the things that you may or may not have expected is that a bulk of the inventory that's available for sale under $250,000 right now is going to be in the southeast part of the Metroplex. Fort Worth. So you see the southeast side, you're going to see a good amount of those homes. Oops, let me move myself. Actually, I'll remove myself altogether. You're going to see right here, you can see the types of homes that are available for sale right now. In fact, there's 374 homes that are under $250,000. Now, they're generally going to be a 2-bed and 1 bath, or a 3-bed and 1 bath that have been converted in the garage. So that's the type of homes that you have access to. Most of them are going to be in the southeast and the southeast side of Fort Worth. Now, there's also going to be some pockets in here that, again, they're going to actually show white settlement. So think of it more as a neighborhood. So these are actually going to count in the Fort Worth side of things. And that's where you see the inventory that's available for sale under 250,000. So there's opportunities on all parts of the Fort Worth side of town, depending on where you're wanting to live. Now you're going to see where the luxury communities are here, right in through here, Mira Vista, one of the most expensive zip codes in the country. And then also up here in the huge castle area, or at least I call it the castle area because there's a ton of castles out there, or would appear to be castles. All right, so let's go here. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into that sweet spot. You're gonna see a ton of them, so it may not even be the best exercise here of doing 250 up to 500,000. You're gonna see the most amount of properties in this price range. So you can see over 2,000 properties that are available in this price range. So if you have a budget of up to $400,000, you can buy any home in Fort Worth, just about, and I'm rephrase that, in just about any area in Fort Worth within a few blocks. Now here you're gonna kind of see a little bit of it's pretty pronounced actually, and you're gonna see a little bit of a kind of like a little protection barrier around the Chisholm Trail Parkway, where you can see this area right here not be anywhere close to $400,000, and that's where most of the more expensive homes happen to be. So you're going to see Mira Vista, which again is one of the most expensive zip codes around. You're going to see this area right here, Overton Park, where I go running basically every week, and then you're also going to see right in through here, right into this road here, Camp Bowie, you're going to see a ton of more expensive real estate, a little bit older real estate, but more expensive nonetheless. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go from 500,000 to 750, and then we're just going to do 750 and above, because we're not going to spend all the time looking at the actual properties. Now here you have 445 properties available for sale right now, and you see the type of real estate that's around here. For $500,000, these are beautiful homes. In fact, many of these are actually new. Most of the new builds are going to be up here in the northern part of Fort Worth. So you're going to see for that price point of 500 to 750, a lot of the real estate that we previously were not seeing does show up here in the Overton Park area and the Camp Bowie area. That's where you're going to see a good amount of those homes, and a lot of the new construction out here, especially towards the lake, Eagle Mountain Lake, you're going to see a lot of those homes actually show up. Now, to show you a bit more of the luxury part of Fort Worth, we're just going to go over let's just go over $1 million to show you where the luxury happens to be, if that is your type of vibe. Now here again, that area that I was telling you about, Mira Vista, is right there, and then Montserrat is up here. So here again, it's the land of castles, in my opinion. Beautiful property, beautiful real estate. But if you're looking for the ultra luxury, if you're looking for that area, like, hey, where is luxury when it comes to Fort Worth? It's going to be Mira Vista, it's going to be Montserrat, and it's going to be, let me show you right in through here. Right into this area right here, you can see a ton of Westover Hills, which at one point, believe it or not, this was actually the most expensive zip code in the country. I didn't believe it either until I made a video about Fort Worth about 3 years ago, and I found that out for Westover Hills. Insane. But when you look at the properties through there, it makes a lot of sense. And then a lot of those homes here through Overton Park, you see just beautiful area. You see, this is where TCU is. You can see a lot of older homes, but renovated homes that are just so incredibly beautiful that you're not going to be able to miss. So there's about 113 homes available for sale in Fort Worth that are over $1 million, and many of these are just absolute behemoths of properties. Now, we've made it a tradition here of going and seeing what the most expensive home in the city that we're featuring is, and this time I'm gonna guess is probably going to be, let's see where it's at. Oh, it's a new construction one. Where are you? So $16 million. Where's that $16 million one? That's a beautiful property. What about this one? We used to have a little map here. Where are we? Okay, here we go. In Overton Park. I have not run through that one. Where is this? Okay, so I go through. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Alrighty. Cool. Let's get into a calculation that a lot of you are waiting for, and that is the mortgage payment. So as you saw originally when we were looking at the homes in Fort Worth, we were looking at the average price point. So what was the average price point of the homes in Fort Worth? So for this particular calculation, let me put myself back onto the screen so I can start moving my hands around. Our monthly mortgage payment that we're going to calculate for Fort Worth, we're going to go with $450,000. That's a little bit above of where the average price point is for Fort Worth, but that's okay. So we're going to try to do the calculation for a property of $450,000. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back here. We're going to go here and then go to 450. Just to give us a visual representation of what that is going to look like. So this home looks just as good as any. We're going to pretend to purchase this home so we have a real life example to do the calculation from. All right. So this home right here, we're going to see that it's in Tarrant County. That's where Fort Worth is. So that's not necessarily new. We see what the previous, they didn't include the previous taxes in this particular calculation, and that's not uncommon. We're going to be able to find them anyway. And this is going to be in North Crowley High School. It's still going to be the Fort Worth school, so we're going to be in a good spot. All right, so let's do this. Let's do the calculation. $450,000. Let's say we're going to put 5% down. We don't have to put 20% down. What a lot of people seem to think that that's still the case. That is not the case. So the reason that people think that is 20% down to buy a home is because if you put 20% down, you avoid what's called mortgage insurance. And mortgage insurance is an additional, think of it, 0.5% to 1% in addition to your interest. And the reason that that is the case is because your lender is putting an insurance policy in the event that you default. So essentially, you're paying more for the loan because you didn't put as much down in the purchase of your home. So if you put 20% down or more, you avoid mortgage insurance altogether, which for the price of this home, for the amount that we're putting in, you're looking at about $180 or so in mortgage insurance every single month. So that's the number that we're going to use, and I'm just ballparking that. But let's continue. So let's just say we're going to put 5% down, which puts us $22,500 for this Fort Worth home. Now we're going to do a 30-year loan. Now the interest rate right now is right around the 6.85%. So we're going to pretend that we're going to get a 6.85%. Now you could easily go to Google and type in mortgage interest rate today, and it's going to give you this ballpark of an answer. But just depending on when you're watching this video, it will have changed. So just be mindful of that. Now let's continue. We're not going to worry about the zip code because what that does is it helps with the property tax, which is going to be wrong anyway, and also credit score. We're not going to worry about that because we already gave ourselves a average interest rate. So for you, the interest rate might be higher, it might be lower, depending on your credit, depending on when you're buying this home. So we're not going to worry about these two right now, but what we are going to worry about is something that a lot of people miss, especially here when you're buying in Fort Worth, when you're buying in Texas, because again, it's one of the most expensive property tax states in the country. So here, this $300, I wish we were paying $300 per month in property taxes. That number is not even close. So what does that mean? That means that we need to go and find what the property tax rate actually is so we can get a realistic property tax estimate. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Tarrant County. So all you have to do is go to Fort Worth, Texas property tax rate. So Fort Worth, Texas property tax rate. And either go to the city right here. So you can go into the city and try to find the property tax rate. So in this particular case, you're going to see the tax rate of the city itself, but that's not the entire story. I'm going to show you why. And it doesn't have it. So it has this, which is just the city rate, but I'll show you the numbers that are being missed. So this right there doesn't tell you this entire story. That's why it's important that you know where these numbers are coming from. So what we're going to do is we're going to go straight to the county. Whenever you are doing a property tax calculation, it's here in Fort Worth for sure, but any other city in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, understand that there's going to be about 5 numbers to look at that have to do with property taxes. 3 of them, every single city in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is going to have them. And then these other 2 that I'm going to share with you, oftentimes they're there, but sometimes they're not. I know that's nobody wants to hear that, but we'll walk through it and we'll be okay. So the number one thing that you're going to see is your county tax rate is going to be here. So that means Tarrant County is going to exist. We're going to need to get that number. The city tax rate, so in this case Fort Worth, the ISD tax rate, in this case Fort Worth ISD schools, and then those 3 numbers are going to be there baked in stone. We need to add them together. Now the other 2 is going to be the higher education tax. So in this case, it's going to be the Fort Worth TCC, so Tarrant Community Colleges network, and then the hospital network. I think it's JPS Health Network, or John Peter Smith Health Network, or something like that. So JPS. So those are the up to 5 numbers that we're going to find. In this particular case, we're going to find all 5. So let's recap. Tarrant, city, ISD, higher education, and hospital network. So we got to go and find those. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the city of Fort Worth. I'm sorry, it's going to go Fort Worth, period. We have Fort Worth ISD. Where's Fort Worth? Where's Fort Worth? Let's do it the easy way. City of Lake Fort Worth, City of Fort Worth, right here. So this number, we're going to go this plus. So we have the city. Now we need the county. This plus. Now we need the ISD. So it's Fort Worth. And your ISD is going to be the highest number. It doesn't matter which city you're looking at. Now we're going to look at the hospital network and the higher education. So in this particular case, we're going to go with this one, the network, and TCC, Tarrant Community College. So we're going to go with this plus this. And hopefully it gives us a number. Boom. So this means that your property tax rate for Fort Worth is going to be 2.2, let's call it 2. Make it easy, 2.22%. That's the property tax rate for Fort Worth. So what we're going to do now is we're going to multiply that times the market value to give us a conservative amount in property taxes that we're going to pay. This is a conservative amount. The reason it's a conservative amount is because you're going to be assessed a lower value for your property, most likely. So although you're going to be buying it for $450,000 more likely, your assessed value of this property is going to be less through homestead exemptions, through property tax protesting, and just the way that the assessed values are calculated. Most likely you're going to be paying the assessed value or multiplying it against the assessed value of about $400,000, if not less. But again, we're going to do a conservative number. We're going to use a higher number, the market value, which is not what you're going to be paying your taxes against. So the market value is $450. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 0.0222 times 450,000. And that gives us almost $10,000 in property taxes. We're going to divide that by 12. And that's $833 in property taxes. You can see that it's a long way away from $300. Now, this is an estimate. This is a very conservative estimate. Most likely you're going to be paying less in property taxes, but I would much rather give you a conservative number than give you a pie in the sky number that doesn't exist. That way you're going to be pleasantly surprised, if that's even possible, when you get your property taxes in the mail, which I did just get mine, so I got to protest them, come to think about it. Home insurance home insurance for property of this value, you're probably going to be looking at about $180 per for homeowners insurance. A lot of it's going to depend on how many claims you've made. A lot of it's going to depend on what the if your property that you're buying has had any claims. So we're just going to leave it at 180 and keep it moving. Now, when it comes to PMI, same thing. I'm going to put in about $180 for PMI because that's going to be about 0.5% for the purchase of this home. So we're going to leave it at that. We're not going to include any HOA fees because you're not all going to buy in an HOA. And also, an HOA is not paid in the mortgage payment anyway. It's paid at the beginning of the year or quarterly or annually directly through the HOA. So we're going to look over here for a property of this value. In Fort Worth, you're almost paying $4,000 a month in property taxes at this point in time. So again, for a Fort Worth property of $450,000 in value, you're going to be paying about $4,000 per month. Now, here's the thing. This number, again, is a little bit inflated because I overestimated the property taxes. You're going to want to put homestead exemptions on your on that one property. You're going to want to do protesting of your property taxes. So the assessed value, hopefully, that you get is not going to be a $450,000 assessed value. It's going to be much less. I'll give you an example that just happened yesterday. One of my clients in that bought a home that I think we went into a contract for $378,000. So a brand new home. He got his assessed value at $270,000. So $100,000 less in assessed value. So there's a big gap. The market value and the assessed value is different. You're going to be taxed against the assessed value, which is incredible. So that's a good news for him. All right. I know we went through a lot, but I wanted to really illustrate that point number 5 of Fort Worth because a lot of you spend a lot of time here searching for homes, as you should. But oftentimes we don't know where these numbers are coming from. And I wanted to make sure that we do know where that number is coming from because it's very important. Now let's go into making an offer. And the best way that I've been able to share with our real estate agents within my team and a lot of the folks that I work with within helping them buy and also sell, but in this case, we're talking about Fort Worth altogether and most likely you're buying, is by actually showing you the contract. So this is a contract that you're most likely going to be using if you're buying in the state of Texas, especially, well, not especially, we're talking about Fort Worth. So Fort Worth is in Texas. What you're going to put here is, well, your agent's going to put here, because this is a real estate commission created that only for real estate agents that are licensed. So you can't really go out there and use this for your own personal use. If you do, it's be careful. Be careful. I can only say that. I'm not your attorney, but just watch out. All right, so parties. This is pretty self-explanatory, but basically who the seller is and who the buyer is. If you're a buyer and you have, if you're married, you're gonna put both folks on here because this is a communal state. This means that whether you want to or not, the other person is going to be on the title if you're married. Even if you are the only one taking out the loan, your partner will also be the homeowner. They won't be on the loan itself. You're going to be on the hook for the loan itself. But when it comes to the property ownership, you both are going to be owners. The property, this is where you put Fort Worth, and you would be putting the county of Tarrant and all that fun stuff. Now, I'm not teaching you how to fill this out, but just letting you know where things are going to go. Again, this is not for the public use. This is for real estate agents. This is for that purpose. All right, so exclusions. Whenever you walk through a property, everything that you saw in that property that's affixed to the home. So essentially, think of it like if the shelves that are nailed in or screwed into the wall. Think of it like the chandeliers. Think of everything that you saw that was attached to the property itself is going to be included unless it is listed here. So as an example, if they want to take the chandeliers, they're going to need to put it here in order for you to in order for them to actually take it. If they do not put it in the exclusions, that means that it is staying with the property. It is understood that it's staying with the property. All right, so a huge favor, as you're coming in, a like is going to go a long way. It's going to really help push this video out into the YouTube algorithm, and Lord knows we need it. So please help us out as we're trying to reach more and more folks to help out with this real estate journey. All right, so sales price. This is where we're looking at disclosing how much of the home we're buying in cash and how much of it we're going to finance. So here, essentially what we're sharing is the strength of our offer and really conveys the strength of our position altogether. So there's going to be a portion that we're going to put in cash, and there's going to be a portion that we're going to finance. In the illustration that I did earlier up here with the mortgage calculation, I put that we were going to do a 5% down. So we would be putting $22,500 right here. Oops, we're going to be putting $22,500. What is going on? How does that show up? Okay, I don't know what happened there. Okay, I'm not going to move back to it because I don't want it to mess up. Leases. Most of the time this is going to be blank, but if it is going to be filled in, most likely it's going to be because of a residential lease. So essentially somebody's selling you a home that they're not currently living in themselves, that they're renting out, and or it's going to be a fixture lease. So think of like solar panels. They're becoming more and more common these days, and you do need to have access to that lease. Earnest and termination option. So essentially commonly referred to as the option fee. Now, earnest money is, think of it as a down payment. Think of it as a deposit. Don't think of it as down payment because that's going to confuse it. Think of it as a deposit. So whenever you are making an offer on the purchase of this home in Fort Worth, you are sharing with that homeowner how much you want it, basically. You are wanting to convey that there's high motivation, and one of the best ways that you can convey high motivation is by offering think of it as a deposit. So earnest money. It's not required, but it is common practice to put 1% of the value of the home. So in this case, $4,500. Again, it's not legally required, but it is common to see $4,500, aka 1% of the value of the home, as the earnest money, showing that you are serious about the purchase. And if you go through with the purchase without breaking the contract, this will be credited to you at closing. Now, if you don't go through the purchase of this home, but get out of that contract in a compliant way without breaking it, then you also get this earnest money back. The only way that you do not get this earnest money, aka deposit, is if you go and breach the contract. That's the way that you don't get it. So be very mindful of that. That's why it's very important that you're working with a real estate agent that can preserve this huge investment for you, because it matters. Now, option fee. When it comes to the option, you're looking at, most of the time, you're going to look at about 7 days of option, 5 to 7 days of option, and you're going to pay about $100 or to $200 for that option period. Within that option period, for any and all reasons, you can get out of that contract. So essentially, it gives you the option to get out for any and all reasons. And during this option period, that's when most of the contracts, I guess, fall apart, if you will. So oftentimes you see a property that was once active goes into contract. That's what's currently happening. It's going through the option period where the home buyer is doing inspections on that home to see if there's something additional, that there's something with the property, this condition, that is a little bit different than what they anticipate it to be. And here again, within both the earnest money and the option money, you need to be into the title company within 3 days of the execution of this contract. So this is something you need to pay up as soon as possible. Title policy. Title policy is essentially what's really a title insurance, that whatever you're buying, aka the home that you're buying in Fort Worth, is in fact going to be yours at the end of the day. So if there's complications, issues down the road, this title policy will indemnify you from those challenges down the road. Let's just say somebody comes out of the woodwork and says, hey, that property that you purchased is actually mine. My cousin had no right to it, and I don't know why they sold it, blah, blah, blah. Right? So the title policy is designed to protect you from that. Now, the survey is a piece of document that if you lose it, it's going to cost you about $500 to replace, which essentially it's a document that shows you what it is that you're purchasing. It's going to show you the lot. It's going to show you where the home is, aka the improvement. It's going to show you any easements on the property. It's a very important document that you know, so you know your property boundaries. Now, here, all of this is negotiable. So if title policy, if you're in a normal market, aka if you're in a market where homes aren't selling as fast, it's more common for the seller, or it's common that the seller actually picks up the title policy. Now, if you absolutely want the home and want to create a very powerful offer, and you're in a very competitive market, then it is common for the buyer to pick up that title policy instead of the seller. Now, the survey, here again, it's also a negotiation item. If there is a survey already in place that gets used, awesome. Doesn't matter. This really won't really matter. But if there's not a survey in place, or a survey was already in place, but it didn't get accepted by the title company, then somebody has to pay for it, which again is like $500, $600. So be mindful of that. You're good. And the rest of it is, we're not going to spend too much time in the rest of this. The only thing I want to share is that with the seller's disclosure under the Texas Property Code, most homeowners are required to disclose anything and everything that they know about the property. So a homeowner that has lived in that property, they're going to fill out a seller's disclosure and let you know what they know about the home to the best of their ability, or else they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. And another important item in the contract itself is going to be the date of closing. So typically you're going to be closing within about 25 days of you making the contract and it getting accepted. So that's essentially what a relatively average transaction is going to look like, about 25 days. Now you can close sooner, you can close later, but the goal here is that you close. All right, so I'm going to X out of that for a quick second. Let's go back to our DFWHomebuyerClass.com. So here again, just go to DFWHomebuyerClass.com. You're going to get all of our templates, all of our script, all of our calculators, all of our everything that we give our own agents access to. You're going to have access to them as well. So DFWHomebuyerClass.com. It's going to teach you this and then some. It's going to give you so much valuable information that you're going to need to get the best possible deal when you're buying a property. Week one. So let's break this down, and let's break this down into the 4 weeks that I was mentioning. So again, it's going to take about 25 days for you to close on the purchase of this property in Fort Worth. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this down into the 4 weeks. We're going to look in week one. It's going to be your week of inspections. This is when you're going to put a inspector out to that property, and they're going to give you a full report on what they think the condition is, and they're going to test the HVAC, they're going to test plumbing, they're going to test electricity, they're going to test as much as they possibly can on that property to give you a good idea of what the condition is. And this is typically done within that option period. So as soon as you go under contract, get that inspector out there and get them to give you a report on it. So then if something comes back that's a little bit different than what you understood the condition of the property to be, then you have an opportunity to renegotiate or negotiate at least on those items before you move forward in that transaction. So you want to make sure that you do this really with plenty of time. Number two, you're going to go to approval week. So the second week, most of it's going to be you working with the lender. That's what most of it's going to be. And also with the title company. You're going to be providing as much information to those two entities to help you close on the purchase of this home. So that second week is going to be so vital. It's going to really position you to have a strong close or a close on time. So week two, don't delay. Get as much information over to a lender. Don't leave everything to the weekend, because a lot of the entities that you need to reach out to, such as the IRS, such as the banks, such as the investment firm that you're working with, they don't work on the weekends. So don't pull it off until the weekend, because a lot of the offices that you might need access to, such as getting a portal reset password, that they're not going to help you out on the weekends. And that's something that I've learned the hard way, even on my own transactions. Week number 3, I call it conditions week. And conditions week is essentially once you've provided as much documentation over to the homeowner as possible, they're going to give you some conditions to meet after they send it over to underwriting. So once that lender sends everything that they have over to underwriting is probably going to need some clarification. Underwriting is probably going to ask for some additional things. The best example I like to give is, let's just say you own, I'll just go with my examples. I'm not going to even use a third party. So whenever I do a home purchase, it just doesn't fail that every single time they ask for a letter from me saying that, hey, these other properties that you own, you mentioned that they do not have an HOA. Is that true? We need you to sign and attest to that. That's a condition that I have to meet. So that's what you want happening in that third week. And in third week, you're going to be receiving the appraisal. So the appraisal is something that the lender is going to request. And it's a third-party appraisal that the appraiser is going to go out there to the property and give their opinion of value. And they're going to let the bank know. They're going to let the bank know or the lender know, hey, this home that is under contract for $450,000, it's actually worth $450,000, so we're good to go. Now, in the event that the appraiser says, hey, this home is actually only worth $400,000, well, then there's a delta. You're under contract for $450,000, and the appraisal saying it's only worth $400,000. So that $50,000, something needs to happen. And there's only 4 things that can happen. Number 1 is the homeowner decides to lower the value to meet the exact appraised value, and you keep on your way. That's one option. Another option is you, as a home buyer, come up in the terms of making up the difference. So you're under contract for $450,000. That price is not going to change, but what the bank is willing to lend you is $400,000. So that $50,000 you're going to come out of cash. That's a second option. The third option, which is the most common, is you're going to meet somewhere in the middle. Seller's going to take a little bit of haircut, and you're going to grow a little bit of hair. Bad example, but you're going to meet somewhere. That's what happens most of the time. Now, the fourth thing that can happen is nothing happens. They stick at their price and you say, hey, I just can't qualify. The deal collapses, right? And now there are protections. So again, keep in mind, you're under contract now, and that earnest money, aka that deposit that you put of $4,500, that's at play now. You don't want to lose that money. So it's important that you're working with a qualified real estate professional that preserves that for you. And I'm thankful to say that in all the transactions that I've done, we haven't lost our clients' earnest money yet. Not saying it's not going to happen. Hopefully it doesn't, but it hasn't happened yet. And we do a lot of transactions. So work with somebody that can navigate the real estate market well. And then during the week 3, you're going to be securing your homeowner's insurance. And week number 4, you're going to be scheduling the closing, scheduling for utilities to be activated. You're going to need to get your closing disclosure from the title and lender, essentially letting you know how much you need to come to the closing table in cash. And they need to disclose this to you 3 days before closing legally. So just be mindful of that. You're going to be scheduling your final walkthrough. So either the day before or the morning of the closing, you as a buyer want to go to that property and make sure that everything is right with the world. You don't want to have bought this home and then find out that, oh crap, there was a huge leak and this should not have happened. You don't want that. You want to make sure that up until that last second, you know what the condition of the home is. And then once everything is good to go, you wire the funds or bring a cashier's check to the title company, not a personal check. Let me say that again, not a personal check. Make sure that you have the cash ready to go. All right, so once funds are in, keys are exchanged, and unless there's a seller leaseback, if you do a seller's leaseback, then you're the seller becomes your the tenant. But once the funds are in, then you're going to be getting your keys, and you're officially a homeowner. So congratulations. Now I know this sounds like a huge journey, and in some ways it is, but it doesn't need to be stressful. It doesn't need to be burdensome. You need to be working with somebody that can actually help you through the entire journey. So I have here an entire play-by-play for all of our clients that we actually use here internally. So it gives them exactly the roadmap that we're using. And then once we're under contract, we actually have this checklist that we make our agents, we make available to our clients as well, so they know where they are in the transaction. So every single Monday, we are sending this out to all of our clients to make sure that they know where they are. And our ops team is consistently messaging them, and I'm calling, and everybody is full press communicating with our clients every single opportunity that we get. Now, after closing, we go ahead and remind them of certain key things. So we remind them, hey, Here's what you need to be doing the first week that you are the homeowner. This is what you need to do within the first 30 days that you are the homeowner. And this is what you need to be doing every year, along with some pro tips to avoid getting scammed. This is something that, again, we pride ourselves in communication with our clients, and we get a ton of really good feedback on that. So if we can help you or anybody that you know, and is somebody that's thinking about buying in Fort Worth, forward them that video or share with them our contact, or just reach out to us. We would love to have a conversation with you. But outside of that, if you're thinking about buying in Fort Worth and you found this video helpful, do me a huge favor and comment Fort Worth down below to let the algorithm know, and all your friends here that are at this end of the video know that this was valuable. But outside of that, see you on the next one. Thanks so much.